what are the things we need to know about child development that we may not be getting or yet?
I just published a blog post on the greatest harm to a child that can happen, and that is disconnection. And I think what we've inherited from European traditions is forced disconnection of children, right? You separate them out at birth, you go make them sleep alone, all this independent stuff, so they don't need their parent nearby all the time. Well, that actually affects then every part of their becoming self. It affects their neurobiology. It doesn't grow as well to be, all the layers of social capacities, the self-regulation of various systems, the stress response, the endocrine system like oxytocin. All these
Mm.
things then can be dysregulated or not established in their optimal way. And the child feels abandoned because the baby is born, we resemble fetuses till about 18 months of age compared to other animals. And we need to have that external womb experience to help the brain grow as it's supposed to in healthy, self-regulated ways. But the parent or the mother or the caregiver has to be there pretty much 24/7 for that little baby to grow well. In our ancestral context, we did this. But in industrialized countries, we kind of, forgot about that importance and just more and more kind of minimize the needs of babies so we could do our work, in the factory or wherever else.
Hmm.
So
And
connection.
that makes a lot of sense to me as far as like, when I think about other animals and other mammals, like I watched my daughter and I got to watch a horse being born last year, which was
Oh,
amazing. And
wow.
but it was amazing because within an hour, that foal was standing up and starting to wobble around really pathetically and reaching for the mom. And then within that week, that foal was bouncing and hopping around a field. And we see that with almost like, I mean, I guess marsupials is a whole other thing, right? But like basically, there's a lot of being able to get up and go in most of the animal kingdom, except for humans because of our big heads and our bipedalism, right? So that makes sense that, so this idea that we're not quite developed yet maybe is something that we really need to understand. I mean, we know this, but like I think it's helpful to really to understand this. I love the idea of the
Right.
external womb.
Yes, we evolved to have a brain size that's 3 times the size of chimpanzees. Chimpanzees' mothers raise their children alone. And a mom who has a small brained species and a small brain species can do that. But we have a huge brain, and that's why we're born so young and so immature, because the head gets too big from the bipedalism, our shrunk pelvis, so we could walk on 2 legs. So we co-evolved this big brain, changed from being ape-like chimpanzees. We co-evolved into a cooperative, egalitarian kind of lifestyle where the baby is cared for by multiple caregivers, not just mom, because the mom can't take care of all the calories that big growing brain needs. And so we have now anthropologists are telling us, and archaeologists, that's how we differ from chimpanzees. And my argument is that when we don't provide a multiple adult nested care, the evolved nest, we call it, then we are undermining our full human capacities. And it's not a surprise that we look more like chimps in the way we behave because we haven't developed all the stuff that's part of being human from that evolved nest support.
So in the first 18 months, to really be clear about that, like you've shared about how much brain development is happening there and development in the immune system. Can you go a little deeper as to what's happening in those first 18 months developmentally?
Right. So we can't do experiments on babies really ethically, right? So there's a lot of animal studies that do studies of care that's nurturing versus unnurturing care. One of the most famous is with rats, where if you have a high nurturing mother in the first 10 days of life, And a high nurturing rat mother is licking their child all the time. For humans, it would be being carried all the time. 10 days of a rat's life is equivalent to about 6 months of a human life. If you have a high nurturing mother in that time period, you turn on genes that control anxiety. When you come experience something new, these genes can take you, calm you down. They set everything up for that. If you don't have that high nurturing mother in those 10 days, 6 months for us, then those genes never get turned on. You never are able to do it later because it's a sensitive or critical period for that.
Mm.
And so the only thing to keep you calm is drugs. This is what they show with the animal studies, right? So there's that kind of thing. A lot of epigenetic things. These researchers said we picked one gene to look at that mothers affect, but there's hundreds of them that mothering is affecting. Now, another aspect that we know more about is the stress response. The systems for the major stress response are established by comforting care in early life. If the baby is left to cry a lot, left alone a lot, that's not going to set that system up to be very well functioning. It will easily get out of whack, and that child then will scream to get attention because they're dysregulated and they don't know how to calm down. They need the person, the adult, carrying them around to keep those systems calm while they're growing and establishing how they're going to work. So those are two examples.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Janla Van Zant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.